In the main event of UFC on ESPN, Cain Velasquez was defeated by Francis Ngannou in 26 seconds by knockout. I'll just go through the whole fight and talk about what happened, what sort of tactics they were using. Let me just turn the sound off. That'll be a little annoying. But talk about what kind of tactics they were using, how the fight was looking, and how the fight was finished. So it starts out, Francis gets center. What we're seeing a lot from Cain is a lot of head movement side to side. And when I had the post-fight study, that's the big thing I talked about, is that Cain does a really good job moving his head. And that in all likelihood, he'd be able to move his head, avoid some of Francis' big shots, get in, and then once he's clinched up, be able to get the fight to the mat, or at least wear him out against the fence, take him down, and then eventually beat him up and win. I picked Cain to win this fight, put some money down on it too, so a little disappointing on that side, but we'll talk about what happened and how he got finished. So moving his head, feints, throws a kick. Maybe not the best idea throwing kicks with a guy who has the reach of Francis Ngannou. Here he kind of gets clipped at the end of a punch with, it's kind of hard to tell if that was more of a jab or a hook from Francis. But then moves his head out of the way with the right. So again, you're seeing a lot of feints, head movement, more kicks than I expected. Again, throws another kick. Francis gets out of the way. A lot of blind kicks, and that's a risky thing to do just with anyone. Usually if you're going to throw a kick, you want to set it up and kind of mask it behind a punch or two. So to throw a blind kick, you're kind of risking yourself getting counterpunched. And with a guy like Francis, that's not a good thing you want to do. It's hard enough to avoid his shots on both legs, but when you're on one foot, it's going to make it even harder. Just get that out of the way. I don't need that. All right, so now Francis has him up against the fence, throws the first shot. Cain's going to duck under and look to shoot. Francis doesn't have the uppercut ready here, so that's going to be a good opportunity for Cain. Gets on one leg, but Francis does a good job of pummeling underneath, kind of like he did with the Curtis Blades fight, or at least the second Curtis Blades fight. So good job defending there, but Cain's going to be relentless and keep going after him. He's not just going to stop after the one attack. So ducks underneath. That punch doesn't really land. Then this uppercut appears to kind of push his head back. He falls down. Gets the finish. So on first glance, it looks like this is just a quick uppercut from Francis Ngannou, and just short uppercut knocks him out. That's it. But on the replay, you can kind of tell here they're focusing on the leg. That leg was definitely a big part of the finish. And it's worth noting that in the post-fight interviews, Cain kind of downplayed it, but in the post-fight press conference, Cain was saying that the punch really didn't hurt him all that bad. He was saying the punch didn't hurt him too bad. It was more just the leg. That the first step he could feel it pop, and then on the second step, that's when the knee actually went out where you could see it. And so he was saying that, yes, the punch, or at least the uppercut kind of landed, but it wasn't enough to rock him. And I believe that. Cain's taking a lot harder shots. When you see the replay, it was mostly just an arm punch. Didn't really have a whole lot of wind up to it. So while Francis does hit hard, I don't think it's enough to knock down really any heavyweight, let alone Cain Velasquez. But it did just that. So here they're being good sports about it. And then after he's done with that, he just kind of yells, fuck. Just upset that his knee blew out there. Really bad timing. And it's going to show Francis celebrating a little bit more. The reason why I'm stopping kind of intermittently is just a lot of times if you just let it run all the way through, sometimes YouTube has some copyright issues with it. So this is just so you guys can see it all. So I'm doing it so the video actually will play through and not get shut down. So this is going to be in slow motion here. So ducks under the first punch. So first punch misses. Now we're going to look for the second punch. Lands kind of back here on the shoulder, not on the neck, not on the head. So that one really isn't doing anything to hurt Cain. Cain shoots in. Francis does a good job of lifting him up with the underhook. Pushes away. Throws the hook, throws the uppercut. But you can see Cain's knee go out there. And right now, this isn't someone who's like, holy shit, I just got rocked. This doesn't look like a guy's face. This is someone who just took a really hard punch. This is someone who's in really bad pain because his knee just blew out. Again, look at his face. This isn't a typical face that you see from someone who gets rocked. Usually when someone gets rocked, they kind of are stone-faced or their eyes are kind of back in the back of their head. Cain looks like he's with it. He's just in a lot of pain right now because of his knee. Blocks that punch. But at this point, he's just covering up and waiting for the ref to step in because he's injured. Ref steps in. Second punch did land, but this punch right here, ref does a good job of getting in the way before it lands. So I tend to agree with Cain when he says that he wasn't knocked out here, that it was just it was a freak injury. We'll see if we can get another replay there and at least time it a little bit better. So hook misses. Now watch where his hand's coming from this uppercut. So it's up against the fence here, so he really can't wind up moving back. It's just kind of set still here, hands already down, and it's just kind of like it's like a bit of like a forearm flick too. Now, it's not to say that Francis isn't strong and can't create some power from there, but that's the type of punch where it's uncomfortable, it'll hurt. But I don't, based off what I've seen from Cain Velasquez, Cain's career, that's not the type of punch that's going to drop him, let alone knock him out. And when we saw it with the face, obviously, it was clear that he was very well aware of what was going on with his knee. It's not like he was unconscious and had his knee bending the wrong way. But then when you also look at his leg here after that punch lands, while he tries to step, it just goes completely out. So to me, yes, Francis did land that one little uppercut there, though. I can't call that. I just don't see how you can call it a knockout. And I mean, technically, yes, it's a knockout. But to say that Cain landed a huge shot on Cain and that was what caused the issue, to me, it just looks like more of a freak injury. We saw with Cain in the JDS trilogy that he got caught behind the ear really quick, seemed like a bit of a freak loss, and then ended up coming back and just ran right through him the next 2 times and pretty much changed his career for good. Granted, JDS is still towards the top of the heavyweight division, but the JDS of old before the Cain trilogy was willing to throw multiple punches at a time, throw a lot of extended combinations, really mix it up in the pocket. And the JDS that we see now just tends to throw 1 or 2 strikes at a time. The heavyweight division isn't very deep. There isn't a ton of skill at the top of it, so he's still able to make it pretty high up the rankings. But the JDS of old is no more, and in part that's because of what happened in fights 2 and 3 of the trilogy. So we'll see if Cain, at 36 years old, how long it's going to take for him to recover from this knee injury. See if he comes back. If he does come back, is he going to look to fight Francis again? And if he does, is he going to look to recreate that JDS trilogy and just put a pounding on him for the next 2 fights? Or maybe, who knows, maybe if they do have a rematch or a second rematch after that, maybe Francis will legitimately land a really big shot that had a proper windup, landed right on the chin or landed behind the ear, and there was no question at the end of it that there was a knockout. But in this case, Francis did what he had to, through the long punches that we're used to seeing from him. Did a good job of fighting for the underhook initially to stuff the single and force Cain in, and then while Cain was stepping in, injured his knee, landed a short little uppercut while he was still looking to control the hips, and from there, Cain went down, and that was really all there was to it. But that knee's bent the wrong way, and it's tough. You hate to see it go this way. It was one of my concerns going into this fight for Cain. From a technical standpoint, I felt like he was far superior to Francis, but usually ring rust is tough to deal with after 1 year. But after what I believe would be 2.5 or 3 years, that's even worse. Usually the hardest part of dealing with ring rust is probably the first round, first couple minutes of that at least. And he got right after it right away in the first couple minutes, and that ends up being where he gets caught. So time dropped, lands on his knee, or lands wrong on his leg, grimacing in pain. Fight stopped. So from here, from what Dana White was saying afterwards, it doesn't look like there's going to be a title shot for Francis Ngannou right away. He said that DC is recovering from injury, and that he has another fight that it's not officially booked, but they know who the opponent's going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be Brock Lesnar. So the plan would probably be DC versus Brock sometime once DC's healed up and his back injury's okay. And then at that point, we'll see what DC wants to do, whether that's going to be his retirement fight or whether he's going to stick around and keep defending the title. Because it seems like it would have made sense here if Cain would have won as expected and then worked his way into a title shot. Then a good plan would be, okay, well, Cain gets the victory, give him some time to rest. DC defends against Brock. Then he relinquishes the belt. Cain fights Cain would fight for the title. I don't know who they would put him up against at that point. I guess you could pick maybe the winner of Derek Lewis and JDS, for example, though I would absolutely hate to see another Cain JDS fight. That trilogy's over. As I mentioned before, JDS has suffered enough there. We don't need any more of that. But the idea would be that Cain would fight someone else for the title, and then DC can retire with Cain picking up right where he left off. But with Cain taking the loss, I don't know how that plan's going to work out. So we'll see if DC wants to hang around a little longer until Cain works his way back into contention, or whether he's just going to end his career after the next fight.